now. So these are things, those highlights thing we have done it. So data types and variable constants we have we have gone through. Access modifiers, this is completed. Class constructors also completed. Collections also we have completed. Now with the help of this, we're gonna write some a custom logic code. With this knowledge, we have to be able to apply um, something that which we can possibly run through. So what is my context today is I wanted to write a program. Open your tab. So Murthy, I have these credentials. It's admin at mcd.com, and then credential would be training at 1 to 3. So again, I'm gonna paste it here. Sometimes if you want to refer the code, it will be easy to you.
Oh, okay, okay. Can you message me, text
Yeah,
me the in chat?
yeah. So this I'm doing in the what is it? The Zoom chat. So I'm giving to everyone. So again, if you have, I mean, it doesn't have any. It asks any OTP. So I have bypassed this. So it'll log in directly to the system. You don't worry about it.
Okay.
So the moment it logs in, so I want to write some custom logic code. So what I want to do is I want to do a few activities. Mm, so this may be a little advanced in terms of compared to the previous class. So I want to do a contact management. Um, contact management. Here it refers to how do I do CRUD. So create, read, update, and delete. So our contact management should accommodate all this create, read, and update. So these are DML events, a DML activity which we say. So create, read, update, delete all, or it's a data manipulation where we do it. So we have a command called update. So you do a circle query for read, and you have a delete method for to delete, and insert for the create. And we also have upsert where we can do both insert and update at the same statement. So that particular statement called as update, sorry, upsert. So if a record is already existing, you provide an ID, it'll update. If no record is found, so it'll try to insert a record. So it's both combinations it can run through. So that is something called as upsert. Okay. With this content management, so what a thing that I want to do it. Let's say if I tomorrow wanted to ask a questions to you like an assignments to you guys, how do you project them or how do you write them? So this question something should relevantly match to our trailers questions. So you take a challenges, right? So when you go to a advanced Apex or Apex class, you go for training, or you do drum something in the trail batch. You wanted to crack some questions. At the last, you see some challenges would be there. So something like this. So create an Apex class and named contact management and should be able to perform all the CRUD activities. So methods should um, method should clearly uh, demonstrate. So method should clearly demonstrate. Um, so insert contact, update contact. Let's say insert, update, delete contact. Insert, update, delete. So for an update, of course, we do a query. For a delete also we do a query. For insert, of course, you are trying to insert the new records. So by update and delete, by R would be there, read would be there. Without a reading of a record, we can't delete or update a record. So these three things are very important: insert, update, and delete. So this could be mm, using singleton. So what is a singleton? If you see um, uh, something that you're dealing with single records using singleton object. One record you're basically dealing with. The same thing that you could apply for a bulk transaction, and which we say it as create an Apex class named contact management, or the same contact management handles bulk. So this could be a controller name. This could be a singleton record. So where you're trying to deal all with the single records, and here you're trying to deal with all the bulk records. So we'll see the difference. So I would write a method here for singleton, and I show how do you do it, and a single method on a list, how do you do it. For the same extension, you guys would be having assignments to perform the same. So why we're doing this is because how do you process single record? How do you process a bulk record? So we need to know this. Of course, when you learn a bulk, you can process single record, still fair. But ideally, we need to know how to segregate a single and then bulk. So that is what we have to understand. So what we're going to do is basically we're going to create a class name as this, and we're going to name it as this. Yes, of course, this is going to deal with single record, and this is going to deal with collections. Using collections, and we say bulkify a term. So bulkify the code. Students object to bulkify the code. That means we're trying to process one or more records. Could be it's not only one, it can have thousands of records also. So with the help of this, you're gonna deal with only one single record, but here you're gonna deal with the bulk of records. So now writing this would help you out in terms of um, let's say it helps you out somewhere to do a reusable methods. So that also will be helpful to you. But here by doing this, what I'm gonna do, so we'll do a basic test class. How to pass this? I'm going to give a basic test class. How to cover this contact management first, and the same thing that you should cover for. Of course, we have a chapter for test class, but if we start kicking off it on how we write a basic test class to cover is the simple classes, it will be as helpful to you. Because in advanced class, when you go, we're going to cover the advanced test classes for those scenarios. Then how do we handle them? So I think this would be a stepping stone to write some test classes and cover the original logic and see them how many percentage has been covered. So that will be helpful to us. So the moment you try to cover some code, only then you can push your code from one R to another R. So that's a best practice of sales which follow. So being a tester, their testing is one way, yes, of course, and the code is going to test your code, whatever the original code you written. So that way of giving a percentage of a test class pass is really important for deployment to a production. So that's it's a must. It's a managed one. You need to have every class should have a test class associated to it. So these four things we're gonna do. And apart from this, so by this, what you're gonna do is you're gonna learn few things. How do I write an helper methods? So that again would be helpful into the when you go for trigger classes. Or we may try to write some class and have a helper methods that will be used for triggers. Um, Apex triggers will put it. However, the Apex methods or Apex class whichever one you use it. So we'll be using the latest stage where the Apex class would help. So that would see in the trigger epics, because each and every activity that you want to perform, you will have some helper methods, and that has been serving for you to do a better job. Otherwise, what else we want to see here? Yes, based on the same scenarios, I'm going to give you some assignments, so that will help you out in terms of cracking some, whether it is we going right path or we are having some issues. We'll get to know, because the moment I say method should clearly demonstrate on insert, update, and delete. So what type of methods are going to use it? So let's say written method, void method, static method. So we're gonna apply that things here. So that will be helpful to you. Of course, void I said it is a async methods. So generally many like async Apex they gonna use it. Like void would be used by future class, batch class. Some other people do they all use it void. So who will be a synchronous class who gives a quick response where they try to return an instant results when the moment you call it. Let's say a string. If you have a return method, so of course the method at the end of the method you'll have a return of a string. For surely you'll get back. So they are sync methods. So assignments would be there on our Apex class. So I've told here about the content management. Maybe I'm giving a different types of an objects instance to you guys. But just you have to replicate few things and then maybe a few inputs I would change it. And how do you create and update them? That's what my call would be. Because ideally we have to practice such code in at least in once in your training session. So this would be there. And what else I want to do is another one is identify the bugs. Identify the bugs in the code, or identify the bugs in the snippet. So this way will help you out to figure out what is wrong in the code. So this is something I have to prepare and I have to give you. So or else we can get from the any model questions or dumb questions which you have. So we can get the bugs. We have to identify them where it goes wrong, in which line it will go wrong. That we can investigate. So this way again it will give a confidence to you to read through the programs. Tomorrow, yes, of course, if you join a project, someone would have been written a code and that somewhere something went wrong. And how to debug them. So that skill also will be grown here. Okay, so let's quickly get into these two things, which at least how do we write a singleton? How do we do with the bulk? So the moment when we come with the bulk, yes, of course, we have a collections. The collection would use list set and maps. Let's see how effectively we can use it. If the collection is not effectively used here, at least in the trigger side, we'll be using more effectively because there, of course, maps we have to touch there. So let's see. So any question, guys, as of now here?
No, I'm good.
Okay, perfect. So let me travel back here and then. So once I write this class, and then what I'm gonna do is maybe tomorrow, anytime that we can, pull all the project related stuff to our the local branch, and then I'll explain you out. Local in the sense to the what do you call it? So to VS Code, we'll create a project specifically for this McDonald's, whatever we're working on. And so that SFDX project, from there, how do I create a simple class and how do I deploy back and see the results all will see. Because so far I'm just giving an explanations on the dev console. So something you have to play with VS Code also. Because in advanced code maturity, LWC, some components will be writing here. So we have to be familiarized with the VS codes too. Okay, let me jump in here and then write for a dev console. So these are the last class which we did it. So all this we're just writing a snippet and then executing them. But today we're going to effectively add them. So I'm going to click on new class and the name which I was been indicated here, contact management. Contact management. The moment I give contact management, you think it's singleton, where we're trying to deal with only one record. So yes, of course we know. So whether we are writing a method of static or we're just writing a normal method, anything is fine. So basically, you have to achieve these content management. How do you want to deal with singleton records? So what they were saying. So you must have clearly demonstrated about insert contact, update contact, and delete. Yes. So let's have all of these methods which has been there. Insert, okay, insert they required, update method they required, and then delete method they required. This is an absolute need request. They have it, but you can't have a syntax like this as we discussed in the early. So you need to have a proper syntax. Maybe it is a public or a private. It's your call. So write it as a public. If I say insert, of course you wanted to say that yes, I've inserted successfully this many records. Then you have to reply back to them, right? So let's say insert method could be a sync method where I would return contact on successful insertion, right? So we have to return a contact. So then what should I have here? So public static. So what return type should I have here? Please. So public
Con-
static we're writing it. What should be return type here?
contact object, if you have a
Okay,
contact.
that's good. Because he is expecting a return a contact on successful insertion. So I would return a contact object, of course. So here I would return whatever the contact object which I'm gonna give an instance. Now whether you're gonna pass a value or we have to take a hard code a value here that has been a call. You can send a value here, string. Let's say last name is very important in the contact object. It's a mandate field, and then you can have a string email, something like this. So last name and email is more than enough. Actually, last name itself is more than enough. So you need to see when you go to a contact object, what is a mandatory field if you see in the UI. So they would show you for sure. Last name is more than enough. So contacts and rename to a customer contacts. So the moment you create a new customer contacts, look at this. So it will tell you some red color indicated mandatory field. So that would be your last name. So nowhere else you could see. If anywhere if you could see, then you made some custom field and that you made as a mandatory field. Unless and until this is typically says that okay, last name is only the mandatory field. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take a last name and then as well email. So these two things only gonna fill it up now. So that is more than enough to me to print it out. So last name and email. So what I'm gonna do, my intention is to insert only one record. This is all dealing with singleton records. So likewise, we have to instantiate an object. Contact con is equal to new contact. So when I say con dot and then because with the help of the object instance only we can insert a new record because we need a memory actually to deal with insertion. Uh, we need contact object instance with new operator because that holds memory. That holds the memory to insert a record. So writing such comments would help you out in understanding the programs clearly, um, which will help you out to read through some days after also. So return contact successfully on, let's say this method returns. This method returns a contact on successful insertion. Okay, that makes sense. Now contact dot why do we do is because this instance can have, let's say your contact object is holding 500 fields, we don't care. So con dot if at the moment I do, so you should get all the 500 fields if you have here. All the fields you can map it here also. So con dot last name, it's here. So I'm gonna map this with this last name. So why I wanted to map like this? Because you're going to give pass a dynamic value, and whatever the value which you pass, calling this class name dot method name and pass having value. So it should insert a record and return back. So that's my original call. So con dot and email. So of course you can take email. Always the first variable should be e as a small, and the next word like this. This is the camel case notations we say. We have to follow this for sure. Else that's a coding best practices we have. So you can see in a Google programming best practices for Apex class. You can have this also. So generally you can see Apex PMD is the one which is doing you. So basically they will tell you what is the best practice that you have to follow through. So Apex code best practice. This is a link which we have already. So just go through this link. So they say you, well, how do you do right? So what is the best thing that you have to deal with? Maybe if you see that this is today, it is like too much to you. You can check them later on. So for sure, best practices links we have to check this. Some days you can check. Still in the progress of writing a program. But I would recommend you if you're dealing with the VS code, so make sure you have a package called as Apex PMD extension. This is Apex PMD extension, and this will illustrate what we're trying to deal with. So it'll have all the rules define what it's gonna do. Um, this title is not much here. It'll load. So it'll tell you if you write a snippet. So whether it has a logical syntax or you're having a issue with your naming conventions, all it gives. So look at this. This simple video. It says um, someone has written a if under so many loop. If is given. Avoid circle queries inside the for loop. They say that's the best practice we have. And also, so they illustrate about if someone is writing too many flips. See, avoid empty flips. Avoid blocks. Too many blocks if blocks. So like this, they're gonna give some errors here, which will help you out in identifying the right way of writing the methods. See, so many nested loops they have, right? If you see. So these are the downside which you see with so many errors. Deeply nested if else statements are hard to read. So please avoid that they're saying it. So like this, someone if you guides you, it will be best enough to understand what is the best practice that we have to follow. Of course, in majority of the projects in Salesforce, people are using Apex PMD. So this is having good review actually. So many people are using in the projects as well. And this is helping out you to identify what type of a code that you're writing when the code quality check can be done. So just like highlights I'm giving you. So here, like we're writing it, if you have this ES caps, it will tell you that okay, boss, your variable name, please indicate properly. Any variable name should start with small e, I mean small letters, and then followed by a camel case notation like this. What we have now. Let's say this contact object we have been instantiated, and then we added all the values to this, and we have to insert them rightly. Insert contact. Why? Because the same object memory, whatever we have to insert them. So this will allow to do an insert activity. So this could be written this way also. Database dot insert also could be written. So either database dot insert you do or simple insert you do, both the meaning is same. Okay. So now if you see that, what if this insertion goes wrong? Can you have a try catch for this? Of course you can have it. So you can have an exceptions to this. So let me write a simple exceptions here. Generally, wherever you start, you what to do is you try to start with try block, and then something goes wrong, you may have a catch also. So class name can be starting with caps, and then variable should start with this way. It's fine. Look at this try block. I have catch block. You have, and there may be a finally block also. You can have a finally been written here, and you can do nothing there also. So let's try to save whether this is gonna save. Let's see. So finally doesn't have this. Okay, look at this. Finally, something that if all of this something goes wrong, also still the finally would be executing irrespective of whatever you thrown. Let's take this complete thing and then put in try block. So what we're trying to do is try indicates always a positive scenario. You try to do this. If this is gonna fail, then go to the catch we say. In the catch, what we do is we try to print the exceptions, something which is went wrong. So let's say it's not only about the print. You can have a custom object dealing, so where you can track the original errors which is there in the Salesforce. So as recently Salesforce has introduced error log. I think error log event in Apex. So we will have a platform events which has been trying for to create some Apex logs. So yes, of course we can have them. Any program, let's say Apex trigger batch, any external objects you're gonna have. So we'll have a logger class would be generated, and so we would have a logs generating here. I think I would be talking on to the advanced class onto this because tracking such logs, what went wrong, what is there, it is also important. I think if you see a custom object so far we've seen whatever it is object name under underscore C is a custom object we've seen. But this would be under underscore E. See, universal log even under underscore E. Basically, this looks like an event, so that's the reason they have this under underscore E. Um, so we'll see about this, but just I know on highlights, I'm gonna give this copy here. Again, we will have a logger classes would be added for sure. 100% today, all the projects have with this logger events. This is very recently been came through, but it's more effective when any program goes wrong. So they're logging the events. So it's a nice concept. Salesforce got in the new releases. And the moment it came in, so many projects have been already implemented. Even the current project of mine also has this. Any project that we are holding it currently. For identifying test or something goes wrong, or you figure out some bugs in the code or something went wrong. So we should have it an error logs cases in the future. For error log, today we maybe are doing a simple system.debug. Of course, you have to go through this and then identify what is the log. Or else in the advanced classes, of course, we would implement this error log event. So I want to make some more advanced course pretty nice in terms of getting the most of the concepts what recently people are working with. Be it it's a repository type of a pushing code, or you're trying to deal with the log event, something going wrong, or trying to deal with something with integrations, or no, understanding a parsing of JSON or something. So to that level, all the touch base of things we're going to check into it. So ideally after this course completion, at least a minimum of 5 years experience what people would have. So you should hold it. So that's my motive. Otherwise, we are good here. So you have a try block, you have a catch block here. In this catch block, I'm going to put an exception error maybe, and I'm going to indicate what is that error is. So this exception, if directly print will get it, or exception dot get message, where exactly the message is, which line it caused. All this you can print it out, no issues. Or you can simply get a stack trace. It'll give you where what went wrong. Or simple message will tell you this is the right cause. So this is I think more than enough. See, look at this. This method is expecting a return. If you are at a positive scenario, of course, this return would put down here. What if it's a negative scenario? Let's say it gone to the catch. But ideally, this method should return something. In the catch, you don't have any return. So you can put it as return. You can write as null here. You're gonna not return anything here. So let's save this. Do you see this? Though I have finally, it doesn't matter because anyway that should run. So why I have put finally here, maybe when we come into the universal error log, we may have a finally also present. Even though exception has occurred or not, something went wrong. Finally is the one which you're gonna fire there. So we're gonna look at this. But of course, I'm gonna Bookmark this for sure. Would be useful for us in later state. So look at this. What my question was. So why want to be final? It will be used in the later state. I can have it. I can show you something on this. But as a stepping stone, if you know this try catch, this finally also will be helpful to us. Let's concentrate here. Try and a catch. Try always indicates a positive scenario for a positive scenario, positive check. And then catch is always indicates for a positive check. Maybe something goes with negative check. If the record is going properly and all has been done, so no issues, it insert the records and return the content. Absolutely, we're good there. Something goes wrong with the catch. I mean, with this insertion, some mandatory field you missed, or insertion if something got exception, so that will throw here, and something we're gonna debug here and see what has been gone wrong there. Okay, so let's do this. I'm gonna save this. Okay, so now we're gonna execute this class. How? So class name and a static method, and then we have method. How do we execute this? Is there?
Yeah, go create that contact management object and execute.
So we're gonna give the class name and create an object instance. Of course, to create an object instance, this is not a non-static method; it's a static method. So how do I call them? A class name dot, and then method name is fairly enough to me to call them. Class name dot method name, and the method name which accepts two params, which indicates your last name and email. So last name I would say, the first name I would say email. So last name, what I can say is I can say um, okay, and email I can give as gil@gm.com. Oh, fine. So this would indicate me just you are passing the accurate value of last name and also you are passing the string for an email. So this is how you try to call this method, and of course this would return something. What is that something? It is going to return a contact object. So your LHS and RS should be same. So this method would return you a contact record. Of course, there should be contact to catch them. If this is entire method is going to return string, of course, on the left side you should have a string. So contact object. Sorry. So the return of this would return me a successful contact object, and let me debug them. I can say contact dot last name also can print, or simply contact you can print. So the overall object gonna get it. So let me give here execute highlighted. If that is successfully inserted, you should be able to search with Gilbert here. Look at this Gilbert. Now right now it's inserted. So I have inserted Gilbert and the email ID is gil@gm.com. Look at this. Of course, in the developer console also I have debugged it. It should have been shown here. Current object is last name is Gilbert and then email is this, and ID is automatically generated because the record is inserted successfully. So that's the reason it's given me an ID. So by this way we can easily identify. Yes, of course I called this class and a method name directly since it's a static class name dot method name and pass the value. So it's a happy path where I given a positive values, let's say last name and email I given. So mandatory field last name is filled out. So then of course it will insert the record. So what if I wanted to cover the negative scenario? Something I want to throw some exception or some reason it got failed. How do you go with? So let's say Albert name or a Gilbert, which I'm going to give a blank value here. What is it? Error, insert fail, first exception on 0. Duplicates detected. line one of the records. So why it says duplicate? Of course, it is a Gilbert for your gm at gmail.com you have been given. So where duplication rule been enabled for us. So that's the reason it got a error. I think sometime back in the admin class we've enabled the duplicate detectors. That's okay. But if you see
But,
here,
but kill email cannot be can be duplicate, right? It's not email can have it be same thing, right? Anybody can have any email.
no, at gm at so gil at gm.com if you have that is the unique one, right?
No, that's see, email can be you can create another account with your and you can have a same email address,
But the
right?
extension will not have the same, right? So maybe Gmail is Gmail always. You can have ibm.com. So your name at ibm.com is fine. Your name at gmail.com is fine. How can we have the same name? Even Gmail won't accept, right? You have a one single contact can be referenced in multiple places, but you cannot have a two duplicate contacts. You getting my point?
Okay.
So any email, if you see in original logic also, this happens in every project.
Let's
So
try another name and just the email address is the same. So let's see. I
no,
mean,
no. Here it indicates because of the exception which is throwing here.
I'm
Um,
saying is put the same guild as email and just put another name say, instead of empty
so we say
test.
we have put we have identified. I mean, we went to the duplicate logic and we have put that you cannot have your email also as a duplicate. So this
I mean,
created record.
created, right?
Yeah. So drip check. Let's go. So in the past we have written duplicate matching. Let me check. So what we have covered there. Let me check. So so in this duplicate logic, I think the matching rule has been written for I think to identify.
I think the duplicate is for the name only, right?
Yeah, I think it's funny.
So there's a name with empty
Yeah, name
other.
it empty. It'll try to fire there. So that is what been written there. So I mean, I don't know whether generally in the emails we have a concept of having same email might not repeat in majority project which I've seen. If they are returning, I mean, names you can have repeated. Maybe same people. Gilbert can have another Gilbert also. But emails would be generally the unique one, at least for a contact. So if they have it, yes, of course they're gonna have a new another maybe some of the different domain email they're gonna give it. If it is Gmail, they might give it Yahoo at Gmail, Yahoo.com maybe for the same users. Or else somewhere we have to identify the potential contact, whoever is there, and we have to merge the duplicates contacts. So this
Yeah.
also can happen. But of course, so it's all primary check which the project was to take care of it. So whether they want to allow or they don't want to allow anyone, so it's about their call. So okay, now what we did is we tried to when you pass a blank value, it's been thrown error. So when I just say a normal test value when I given it passed out. So let me give that time I just given a single space. Let's say I don't give any space right now, and I try to execute this. So why it is getting executed because we have a try catch block, so it executes smoothly irrespective whether it is a false or true whatever. Only on the error logs it says an exception. What went wrong? Insert failed an exception. So of course it is not detected a duplicate, but still the original error would be other side is the last name cannot be blank. Last name is something the mandatory field. Without that you cannot create a record. If you just go here, 20 contact here. and then you are trying to create a new contact, and you are do nothing, and then you click on save. So it says last name is important, but that's a mandatory field, right? So you have to fill out. So now you are passing this from a background. See, we have a UI, we are testing from the UI like this. But if you want to run something like I have a class and I pass a value, that's what we are replicating via through background. Writing a class and then passing a value, it does the same options of what you're trying to do here. Let's go click here and then check. So error fail. So one of the reasons is duplicate deleted. Another reason could be the field name cannot be blank. So that is what the error indicates. So how do we manage error? So we have put in exceptions. So that is causing this, which get messages. So if you want to have a more clear information, so you can have multiple debug logs, sorry, exception logs information, like say exception.get message we given in which particular line, get me the stack trace, and which are the fields got impacted. So all this we can get it via through the exception message. So for example, if I say exp dot, see this is the 5 of these methods which is there already, which is trying to say what is actually went wrong on which particular line, which particular fields, all that will get it. Let's say if you don't have these catch and try exceptions, then what happens? It'll throw right away in the UI saying that something went wrong. If some exception is there that is actually saving you out, it'll execute in the an exception error message, whatever is that it'll display. So tomorrow, if you don't have a exception like this, is printf statements or debug statements, you have error logs, which is event publish event we have, right? So that will try to create a record for an object. How do you create a contact record here? Something like that, we'll have a error log records where you can go to that particular object and see what went wrong. Of course, program has to execute. Something goes wrong, you should check in the error logs. That error log would be like an object and a custom object type. So where you can see the records there. So which particular time, who executed, which contact went wrong. So there's timestamp and what type of message it is. So that will be giving more precise on the informations. Because if you put a debug here, so after this logic run or something, too many logics runs or this code got, sorry, these logs may not be stored often. So whatever the log we have opened, right? So it will stay for some time only and then it can go down. If you have a record for the lifetime, you can see unless and until you delete a record. But these are not something like debug logs. They are temporary just to show for today or tomorrow something you have. Or currently, if you see, if I refresh this whole, these logs would be lost. Whatever I got, these logs would be lost. When? The moment I simply I refresh. So this all which are temporary, which we're getting it, we may not have it. But if you have error log object which indicates, and you wanted to surely see the such errors, you need to have some log object to capture all this. Look at this guy, objects are gone, debugs are gone. That is what I was saying. For an exception, if you write in a program in a later stage of your Java project, so be sure with the logic which you write, you should have, or your project should have some error log events.
So, can we integrate this with Splunk with error logging
No, I
that
didn't get you.
Salesforce supported?
No, I didn't get you. Come again.
Splunk.
Scrum,
No, not Scrum. Splunk.
Splunk. Okay.
Can we integrate Salesforce with Splunk, or it's a different mechanism?
No, yeah, we can integrate.
Okay.
Contact management is here. Okay. Okay. So this is a single record we tried to insert. Now let's try to update. Okay. So the same insertion. Let's go for a bulk. Let's see that also. So I want to write a new class, and to this logic which we have written is contact management bulks handles bulk. And here also they are asking you about public contact insert, and this method will be there for sure here. Public contact insert. It's not a simple contact. We're going to say list of contacts. So the moment when I say bulk, you are trying to deal with one or more records. So we take a collection here. So we say list of contacts, insert contacts. I say more one or more records. And do we require this? Let's see. And you can pass on them. It is all about the your wish which you wanted to have. So this is an expectations that we have where we're trying to. So this method returns a list of contact records. Uh, So I would say oppose a successful insertions, we have to see them. So why it's been throwing an error if you see here, if you could go back here and say that what is went wrong here. Open a class and a class, so fine. Method is also fine. And says missing return statement of type list. Of course, you're saying that I would return a list and you're not saying anything here. So that is an error, right? Whatever after the static, if you provide a void, it doesn't have any impact. Look at this. If I put a void, it doesn't care. It's gonna save it. Why? Because of course it knows this method knows it doesn't have any return. What I can return with here. So it saved it. But the moment if you put something like I will return this here and you are saying that you returning this and but you are not giving anything as a return statement, so that won't allow you to proceed to save it. It says missing return statement, return type is list. Whatever you give here, that is you should please send them back because expectation is this and you have to send it back. And for this statement, what I want to do is because inserting a contacts. So let me try with this something like I would say integer numbers. And of course, you are expecting for, hey, these many number of contacts you create for me. Okay, that also we can do. Uh, which I was using for this as string last name and email ID. Or just the last name is also fine. So doing with such insertions can happen where you're trying to create some test data. So that time you use this type of methods. Why we use? Because for test class to test something like 1,000 records you wanted to insert and then test it out whether it is working or not. So this set of methods will help you out calling these some numbers and then you say past last name. So some 1,000 records will be inserted. And we should be very careful about the name which you're giving it. So if you just give flatly for 1,000 records same name, it won't work out, right? It says duplicators, duplicate logic would run and says that too many of the same name is detected, so it won't allow you to save it. Okay, now how do we do it? So we need to have a for statement. So two types of fors we have. So one is the normal for loop, which traditional for loop we say. Another one is we say for each loop. So today we're going to use for loop, which is we will say directly a traditional for loop. So traditional for loop would be indicating something like this. So where for I would say integer, so I is equal to let's say 0. It starts from 0th index, and then so I less than. So why we say integer high is because you need to instantiate or you have to say that which particular variable this database belong to. I say it is an integer I. Then I less than the numbers whichever you're going to give it. Let's say today 10 records you want to insert, we can give 10. So anything less than 10, we're going to insert it there. And then I plus plus. So this is a traditional for loop. Generally, any program you see, even C plus also will have C program also will have the same for loops. So I wanted to instantiate the same object. Look at this. I want to deal with the same contact, nothing else. So why I do is anytime you do insertion, so you need to have some memory to hold it, right? As I told. So contact object should hold some memory here. And that is inside the for loop here. Look at this. Instantiate the contact object to hold memory. See, in some places, people says that hey, the best practice of this is not this way because inside the for loop we cannot do instance. So they may be coming up with such policies also. So in that case, how to do is to enhance no, to enhance the best practice, you can have a contact con can be instantiated here, and then you can simply say con is equal to new just. So why we have to do is every time we have to instantiate with a new memory. I can have I cannot put that contact object new instance here and then simply looping it. That cannot work because every time when a for loop runs, you should get new memory for new records. So this is the max that we can do. So just instantiate or just declare the contact object variable and use the contact object variable, and then for that time particularly here you try to instance the new memory. That's fine. So this helps us. Now in a for loop I should not do any insertion here. Let's say insert con like that, I should not do it. So why? Because that's a violation. We should not do any DML activity insert a for loop. So please do not don't insert contact record inside a for loop. Not only this, do not insert. I'm saying do not do. Basically, I would say do not do any DML activity. I would say please do not do any DML activity inside the for loop. So instead, what you have to do is we have to effectively use the collections. So what is that collection is? My expectation is I have to pass list of contacts if I say. So then the same thing I need to have it, right? Contact. So I say con list is equal to. Of course, I should have a even instance of memory here because for a single record you want a memory. If I say to hold to store all of them, then we also for a list we need a memory. So again, list of contacts. I have to give it. This is how we try to initialize a contact list where it can hold multiple records. So this is very important for us. And now this contact list, what we're trying to do is we're trying to hide it here. Contact list, what I'm saying is, if you could see in the past, we tried to add, if I say string, you put Albert and then you added it, Leo and added it. So of course, the string, if you declare, you need to add something no, relevant to what data type you are giving it here. So data type is your string here, so you're given a string here. If it is a contact, you need to add the contact instance only. No. Tomorrow, if it is account, you have to add the account instance here. Why? Because whatever you have given a list of data which is there, those things only you can add it. So for me here, it's a list of contact. So contact list, whatever I've created, dot add of what I want to add the element. So this is new con. So whatever the contact you have one field here, tomorrow 100 fields here. No, okay, I mean we don't worry about it. All this memory, whatever it is there, it's gonna go here. So you're trying to loop through these records. So as many new records, keep creating it. So it will keep add to this list, and then you can process the list after the for loop. So this way is what we call as bulkified code. Beginning. So here you can come outside the for loop and you can say insert, and then you can say account list, and then you can do this because each and every record you process inside the for loop, and overall the list you are trying to deal with at the last. So this makes sense where I would try to insert the list. And by doing this, we are avoiding to put inside a insert statement inside the for loop. Basically, that is not required for us. So why we say that it is do not do that inside the for loop because um, for a program single transaction executions. So you may ask this question why. So we say DML we can have or we can run up to 150 DML statements, we can have up to 150 in a class or in a single transaction, we can say. So this is what we call as governor limits. When I have such thing is called governor limits. Getting? So let's say today you have 150 DML statements, I can use it max. For this program, if I see only one statement so far I used, what if this insert is there inside the for loop? If this insert is there in this for loop, so how many number of records you have? In the numbers, I don't know what number you're going to give it. Tomorrow, let's say you're sending 200 here. In the numbers, you're giving 200 here. 200 times the insert statements would keep running here. Of course, insert statement is inside the for loop only. So it runs and at the time of 150, it breaks the point saying that was you cannot use 150 DML statements. And if you exceed it, then we throw an error saying that limit exceeded. So to avoid this, so that's the reason we have collections to handle them, add all the records to that collection and then get them outside. So by this way, doing it, though you have added the tons of record here, we are good with that, but you're trying to do an insert at the last. So maximum DML statements we can have run up to 150 DML statements we can have in a single transaction. Single transaction means you are executing this logic. So it's one transaction. You get only one log for that. Of course, we know that the moment I try to execute an NMS or anywhere you're trying to insert a record or you're trying to call this method, it is one single transaction. In a single transaction, how many can run? So that much only you have to do with. So guys, any questions with the 150 DML statements? And why if the people say that avoid DML statements inside the follow?
Good.
Yeah, particular. Guys, okay. So now, even in the insert of these single transactions, we have limitations. Like you can do in one single transaction up to 10,000 records only you can do an insert. Only 10,000 records. You can either it is again, it's a DML records for a single transaction. Is getting? So what do you mean by 10,000 records? So this is a statement that you're issuing it. Insert update is a statement you're issuing it. Here, how many records you can process? Maximum in a single transaction, only 10,000 records. So now I say this method you call. You're again calling another method called as update. Again method called delete. See, overall this indicates one single transaction. You should be very careful. You're doing insert, update, delete, or whatever in a single transaction. You should make sure you are not hitting this 10,000 records the limit. Of course, behind the 10,000, then of course we have to go for a batch class. If more than 10,000 records we are dealing, best choice is batch. If more than 10k records we are dealing, then best choice are batch. We write apex batch because they process by chunk by chunk. They process chunk by chunk, or they process in chunk sequence. So in a chunk, 200 record to 2000 record they can run. Whatever again you set a limit there, it works about there. Is any questions here? Because we have to see in both the end where how do you deal with a single record, how do you deal with the bulk record. Both are important to us. See, so far you've done, you have listed the list, and then you have a for loop here, and then you have here. So there might be a code break here. How? Last name is the same one you're giving. Maybe 10 records you're giving. Last name is keep repeated. So maybe a duplicate error can come here. So in order to do eliminate that, we have a plus I. What is a plus I? Because at the very beginning, let's say you pass here Albert or Abdul here. So Abdul 0, Abdul 1, 2, 3, so on, it will go on. Is it? Why I have to have is because I need to have this name plus an automatic number. So that will make me each and every record as a unique. If just a simple name, if I pass through, then it will have an issue. Of course, we may not have either use the same way of dealing a program in original project, but this, of course, would be helped where to writing a test cases. Test class would have such what we call test utility classes or test factory. So what those are doing is you should call a method there. They would create a bunch of records and give back to you. So they are the best practice in that. So send number of records. What we want to do, they create a record like junk and then send back you saying a test data. Hey, this one record button created for you. For there is exactly useful. Maybe why are you using this type of for loop is very less in the original project. Maybe using you are not using like much of traditional. But for each loop, you would be using much because you're trying to process one of records more than. Anyway, um, it's all the use case wherever you want to can use it. So my ideal state of this particular method is you have to return a list of contact. So make sure are you returning a list of contact here. So that's still the reason it's throwing an error saying that boss please return it. Now if I say here return con list, then this would now save it. So the method is got saved. Is getting. So what have we followed here is we are trying to process a list of records and we should be bulkified with the code. Let's say you're inserting 1,000 records, we don't care, but make sure you have a proper for loop, and you're trying to insert the contacts and make sure even the names are not repetitive and do not have any DML statements in the for loop and add them to collection and process the collection at the last after the for loop. Now be careful with the numbers. You can't go with the 10,000 above, then it throws an exception. Let's see a simple how it works. I'm going to give a sample of control E.
Throws an exception after 10,000 records or before itself?
Exactly 10,000 records it can deal with. 10,001 it will not deal.
Okay.
So I'm going to call this method dot insert records. So let me pass 10,001. Okay. So that is the numbers which I can pass it. And last name I can give it whatever I want. So I'm going to give it as same name as okay. Now 1,001 record, 10,001 record you're giving it. So I said in DML limits. So that's the maximum here. So I'll show you how it's going to execute. So of course this is going to return me a list of records. Whether you're capturing written or not, it's okay, fine. So I'm just going to execute here. See here, too many DML rows. It says limit exception. This is very important for us. Correct, right? If you pass more than 10,000, I mean, I said it can process up to 10,000 records. If you, I mean, give your input as such, then it will have this type of an error, occur to yes. So what it says, too many DML rows. When you give 10,000 input here, 10,001, 10,000 will run, 10,001 records given here. Well, let's save this and then let's see any logs got generated. There was a log here. I couldn't see.
So the commit has not happened, or it's rolled back to all the statement.
It could have rolled back. I mean, the single transactions went on to do all of this record, but when it figured out more than the expectation, the limit exception, we got it. So it would have been rolled back instantly. So this would not reach to the database. Getting? Okay. So if it is you're given a proper number of a limited number, of course it would have been inserted. Let give me a 10 here. 10 records for sure it should have been inserted. Because it's a positive statement, of course 10 records it can do it. So let me do a debug. So I don't have a debug. Why? Because I didn't. So ideally I didn't capture here. You're trying to return some records I didn't capture and I didn't print them. So that's the reason it just executed. But if you see here, you see this Kalpana 6, 7, 8, 9. Why 9 run? Because starting with index of 0. Oh my god, 10 email alert, 10 times it got fired. No problem. Because we have email alerts in this, so 10 emails would have fired. So we say that whether this customer is a premium customer or not. So this guy would have not selected any number and would have been thrown out. See, only one DML statement inserted. And out of how many records? 10,000 records, 10 records got inserted. Look at this guy. This is the important things which we have to notify now. Number of DML rows. In a single transaction, this log is loaded for single transaction. In this single transaction, I can have up to 10,000 records. That's a count we have. And how many DML statements we can? We can have 250, 150 DML statements we can have. How many queries we can have is at least 100 queries you can have in a single transaction program. So we have to use one or two. We should not be like 150 at all. It's too much. But ideally they give that big limit. If you have collections, I think hardly you can use them. 150, we can use maximum 3, 4, 5. It depends on the statements that we use it. But if you put inside the for loop for the 10 record, 10 DML statements would have been done. But that's not the best practice. What if we go with the 1000 records? It will fail there only. I think we written a bulkified code here. So any questions here?
No.
Okay, so one more thing, let's execute. I wanted to pass. Let's go here to the new customer, close this off. What is that name of that particular customer was? Which I've inserted Kalpana, right? Kalpana. Look at this Kalpana is all numbers we got here. So that means the records, those records got inserted. So go here, see all customer contacts. You can see them in this list. So look at here. So it starts from Kalpana 0 to 9 records. Because our for loop starts with 0 and then with less than 10, so it's 9. Okay, so now I wanted to update the record, something I figured out with the Kalpana 0. Then I need to update record to something. Let's look at that. So let me go to Singleton. I wanted to update a record. Public static contact would be there. Why? Because we're dealing with the contact and I want to return. So now it need not to be contact written as a successful statement also. You can say simple string also. And yeah, here I'm going to pass string and I say maybe name. So what I would do is here. So you're trying to export a string here. So make sure you're going to pass string. So the name, what are we going to pass here? Actually, I want to update a contact. If you see, I want to do a query here. Contact con is equal to. So I need to do a select statement. Select ID, comma, or just simply last name from contact where contact. See, select last name from contact where last name is equals to this name. If it exactly matches, I'm just getting only one record. So what if you give Kalpana just simply a Kalpana? Maybe if you have too many records present in this system, it can give one or more records. So then this will fail. So this can handle only one record. This whatever it is can handle only one record because object is your singleton. It's not a list of contact. It's just simply contact. So ideally, your return your circle statement should return me only one record. Then I'll survive. So if your circle statement is returning me one or more record, then it says, hey, list cannot fit into a single record like this. So what you're going to give is the name you're going to give exactly Kalpana 0. So that name it will figure out and then it gets your name and we're going to update them. So I would say con dot the last name. So whatever you give, please the same name you use it here. Without a query, you cannot update any record. Con dot last name and let's give some name here as so Kalpana Shah. I assume this is the name, correct? Maybe Chawla. Chawla. It's okay. And then I try to do an update activity here. Straight away update con. Because we're dealing with a single record. So name came in and then I queried the exact name which I got. I modifying the Kalpana to Chawla. So with this reference, already a record is existing. With this query, you get an ID. So you need not to mention that ID is this. No, nothing is required. The query itself will have ID of this record. Simply just last name is enough. So it will understand, okay, you are trying to query an existing record and that existing record you're trying to update. So here is absolutely new record. So I have to give all the way and then I have to say insert record. Then ID would be generated for this particular record. Here in this case, it's an existing record. Already we'll have an ID for that. So need not to have any new instance memory is not required here. Where exactly new memory is required? When you're trying to insert new record. So if the record is already existing, we don't need any such instances like new operator is not required. Because already there's a record and memory has all been stored there. We just simply query them and update the record. That's more than enough. So now we say, then we're gonna say return. What was the string? It says, I would say message colors successfully updated. Okay, you can give this way also. String name to give your previous name. So this is a previous name and you wanted to update with the new name. I can give that also here. String new name. So previous name is the one which you're going to query and the new name which you're going to give here to directly here. May not to be given here. So your previous name and a new name which you're going to give. So based on that an update should record and it should say successfully updated the record. Successfully update the contact to this. Successfully update the contact to this. So you can assert this statement also. Like how do you assert whether this particular record is going to upset it or not? If you see system dot assert equals, see what they're saying, expected and actual. Expected is what is it? Expected is let me put actual in actual value what it is new name. What I'm expected is con dot last name. So your con dot last name should be updated with the new value. Correct, right? Hmm. So generally these asset statements would be used in test classes only. Okay, let's put this way. Asserts are used in test class. Why? Because we wanted to verify that whether the your previous value and current value has been worked or not. So you may ask a question like, how can you say that it is updated for sure? If the update failed, still you will return the same message, but that's incorrect, right? So now, if the asset something goes wrong, it will break here and it will not even go to the return method.
Right.
So I wanted to be very sure about whether these the value which updated, if this is same, it will go to hello to go to the next line. If something goes wrong with the asset, it will break there only. So that's the reason we use the majority assets in the test classes, where we should be very sure about what exact value we're expecting for. So now your contact records would be the latest updated name would be here for sure because you are updated here, and the name which you sent both should match. If your contact last name is still holding the previous value, so then it doesn't well work. It'll break here only because Kalpana and Kalpana Chawla doesn't match, right? So after updating this, yes, this name would be Kalpana Chawla, and the new name which you're passing also is Kalpana Chawla. So expected versus actual would be the both are same equal. So then I'll go to the next line. So then I think it makes sense. So I'm gonna save this. So let me call this contact method to update this record. Control E. Let us see. Class name dot their method name would be update contact. And what are doing? We're trying to pass the previous name. So in the previous name I have Kalpana 0. And the new value which I'm trying to pass is. So make sure such record you pass it. It should be there in the record. Yeah, Kalpana 0. I'm going to copy the same. And not required. Maybe the Kalpana already, the value which I given is correct. Kalpana 0. Now here I'm going to give Kalpana Chawla. Kal. Okay. So by doing this way, I would get a string, return string. So that string I wanted to keep it at least here. Str is equal to. And let me print that statement which is going to come here. So say result is str. Well, because this the return value would be holding RHS what is returning string. I'm putting to LHS as str. Both data type matched. And that I'm trying to print it out here. So previous name and this is a new name which you give. Let's see. I should get a success message in that case. Result successfully updated the record to Kalpana Chawla. And I'll go back here and see this Kalpana 0 should be updated to Kalpana Chawla. So any questions here?
Sorry, no, yeah, good.
So Trishra, what about you?
Yeah, I'm good.
So this for update we had used. So let me put into the right class where we are executing and seeing a test scenario. So this is how you to call them. So previous value and the current value. So it should give me the right results because we are returning a string method. So I've used string here. If I use a contact here, that the contact should be returned the same way. How you do call you? So stop Again, class name and dot method name. So I think I pass Gilbert here. Gil at gm.com. Something like this you passed. So this would try to execute a record and say insert, and this would try to return a update and say string back. Okay, we're good here. So basically, we understood about how to deal with the contact management records. So tomorrow we'll see about extending on more onto the again specifying onto the bulkified code for update and delete. So that we can do it in half an hour. And yes, of course, I would try to frame assignments and I would send you guys. So maybe tomorrow after the class, you will be having a time to check on them, and then you can submit the assignments also.
So for assignment, we'll use the developer one, right? Not the Visual
Yeah,
Source Code.
I mean you can use developer, no problem. So make sure your VS Code is ready because we're gonna start when you just jump in advanced course for sure you should have VS Code. So this I would tomorrow how to extract a project to our sales and to this VS Code I'll tell you. So we're gonna create a new project here. We're gonna get this McDonald's all the custom components or the whatever the so far we written. So we'll extract into the VS Code and we do some modification there and then upload back to the Salesforce, and that will see a result here. So either any way we can do it. You can develop here or you can develop here. It's fine. But how do we create a project here in VS Code? That also we'll see tomorrow. And whatever the contact management bulk we have inserted, I've written one method here, right? So maybe other two methods. Let me write there and push that code here. So let's see how that works out.
Okay.
Okay.
I may join tomorrow because I have a release tomorrow
Uh,
night.
okay.
May join, may not. Let's see. I think at 9 o'clock.
Okay. Anyhow, I would update the upload the videos so you should be able to watch them. So when you're free, please watch them. So it'll help
Okay.
you for the next class sessions. Okay. Okay.
Okay.
I think we're good. So why I'm just like continuing on to this is because we have to complete the dev and then start advance. And advance for sure it'll take 15 days to 20 days. So
Yeah.
let's progress this on. Maybe these all are known concept to you guys. Just we are refreshing it. Still fine. So we're heading towards the advance. So that's the reason I'm just specifying more things on here so that your advanced class would be a little easy. Or else we can say simple list and insert and then go on here. But ideally we wanted to learn majority of the what our experienced developers would know. So that is our focus. Okay, guys, let's see tomorrow. Um, and then we can investigate more into this. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you all.